You're probably watching because you need a thermal camera that actually works when you put it in the field, not just a gadget with a glossy spec sheet. You want something you can turn on, get a clear image, and trust it to stay on long enough to finish the job without worrying about menus that make you feel like you need a pilot's license. And you're hoping it won't be a money drain if it turns out to be more hassle than help. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I started looking at thermal imaging options for my own HVAC inspections and a few weekend wildlife shoots, the first thing that kept me up at night was the fear of buying a unit that looked good on paper but stalled on the roof or in a cramped attic. A lot of thermal cameras promise high resolution or advanced analytics, but in real life what matters most is how quickly the device finds a hotspot, how steady the picture stays while you're moving, and whether the battery lasts through a full day of work. The FLIR E8 Pro tries to answer those concerns with a mix of hardware and cloud features, and it's worth breaking down exactly where it delivers and where it falls short. Let's start with ease of use. The E8 Pro boots up in under 10 seconds and immediately displays a thermal view that's already been run through FLIR's patented MSX processing. That means edges are sharpened by overlaying the visible light detail the sensor can capture, so you get a picture that feels more like a normal photo than a fuzzy heat map. In practice, this is a lifesaver when you're trying to locate a failing pipe behind a wall. The MSX overlay makes the pipe's outline stand out against surrounding insulation without you having to toggle settings. The menu system is a single-touch scroll wheel with a modest on-screen interface, so you're not flipping through endless pages of options. I found myself able to switch from spot meter to palette with a couple of taps, which is exactly the kind of friction-free workflow you need when you're crawling under a floorboard and can't afford to fumble with a complicated UI. Autofocus on a thermal camera isn't the same as on a visible light DSLR, but the E8 Pro does have a quick focus lock that adjusts based on the temperature gradient it sees. In most indoor jobs, like checking an electrical panel for overheating components, the focus lock finds the right plane within a second and stays there unless you drastically change the distance. That confidence means you can keep the camera on a tripod, step back to gauge the whole area, then zoom in on a suspect spot without refocusing each time. If you're a hobbyist who likes to chase nocturnal animals, the focus works well enough that you can capture a clear heat silhouette of a raccoon moving through a forest clearing without having to constantly readjust. Low-light performance is where thermal imaging truly shines, and the E8 Pro lives up to that expectation. Because it measures heat, not photons, you can point it at a dark garage at midnight and still see a hot water heater or a leaking pipe as a bright spot. The camera also offers a range of color palettes: ironbow, rainbow, blackhot, which you can swap to suit the environment. I found the ironbow palette most useful in a dimly lit attic because it gives a high contrast between warm and cool surfaces, making it easier to spot a small heat leak among insulation. There's no need for external illumination, the sensor does the heavy lifting. Stabilization is an area where the E8 Pro is honest about its limits. It doesn't have built-in sensor shift or electronic image stabilization like some higher-end video camcorders. In my experience, if you're walking briskly with the camera handheld, the image can wobble enough that fine details blur. For most inspection work this isn't a deal-breaker, you're usually pausing to take a shot anyway, but if you plan to do smooth handheld video walkthroughs, you might need an external gimbal or a tripod to keep the frame steady. Now, let's talk about the lens ecosystem. The E8 Pro comes with a fixed 24mm equivalent thermal lens that offers a decent field of view for both close-up inspections and wider scene captures. Unlike interchangeable lens thermal systems, you can't swap it out for a telephoto or a fisheye. For most tradespeople that's fine because the sweet spot of about 3 to 10 meters covers the majority of job sites. If you're a wildlife photographer who wants to capture distant animals from a ridge, you might feel constrained and look at a more modular system. Battery confidence is a practical concern for anyone who spends a full day on the job. The E8 Pro uses a rechargeable lithium-ion pack that FLIR rates for roughly 5 hours of continuous use under typical inspection conditions. In my real-world test, I was able to walk through 3 separate residential sites, take about 30 detailed images, and still have roughly 30% charge left. The battery indicator is clear on the screen, and you can swap.